Huawei started off 2017 with releasing the excellent Mate 9 in the US, and now, just a couple of months later, they followed up with this, the P10. And unlike the businessy Mate 9, this is for fashion-forward camera fans. And we're going to take a close look at the P10 right now. We got two models here. This is the silver version and the black version. But Huawei is making a point about the fashion and design and style of these devices. There are 8 colours in total, including 2 which have been designed in collaboration with Pantone. There's a green one, which was the 2017 colour of the year, called Greenery, and a dazzling blue version, which is absolutely gorgeous. We don't have it to show you now, but we'll have some images for you. The phone itself is not as massive as the Mate 9, which we saw earlier this year. This is a 5.1 inch display, and it's much more compact, a really small phone. My hand easily fits across the front. It's a 1080p screen, and like the Mate 9, it uses the brand new operating system from Huawei. It uses Android 7 and EMUI 5.1 over the top, and that brings some interesting changes. The most controversial perhaps is the alteration to the familiar Android forward and back button, menu button and home button. Instead of being on the screen or physical buttons, they're all integrated into the fingerprint sensor below the screen here. The fingerprint sensor is actually almost flush to the body itself. There's no seams around the edges. And you saw part of what it does there. It's gesture controlled. So a swipe brings up your recently opened apps, and if we go into another app and we go into some bits, if you tap, that takes you back, and a long press takes you back to the home screen. So a totally different way of using Android. The brilliant news is, if you hate that, don't worry, because you can change it in the settings and have regular Android buttons at the bottom. So it's an unusual direction for Huawei, but we're so pleased that they're adding in the standard Android option down the bottom. Like the P9 before it, the P10 has dual Leica camera lenses on the back. These are the same lenses that you'll find in the Mate 9, but with a few little software additions. So we've got a 13 megapixel color lens and a 12 megapixel color lens and a 20 megapixel monochrome lens. These have got optical image stabilization on the color, and the monochrome lens doesn't have that, but an introduction for the P10 is the bokeh mode on the monochrome lens, which was not a feature for the P9 and the Mate 9. And we're also going to have a look at the user interface on the camera, which has altered slightly. So we'll take a bokeh picture mode here, and when we go into alter that, got a really easy way of altering the blur in the background. Really nice and simple to use on the side there. Now, the big addition for the camera on the P10 is something called portrait mode. The P9, says Huawei, was all about shooting landscapes and urban environments, but the P10 is all about shooting people, not literally of course, but shooting people with the camera mode. So you've got portrait at the top, so it's portrait enabled. And what it does, if we had a person in front of us, it looks for the faces at 190 spots in 3D space that it tracks faces with, so it really gets to capture the shape of somebody's face. And when it does that, it uses artificial lighting effects to brighten the image. It brings the person out in the picture, blurs the background the same as with the standard bokeh mode. And the effect that we've found so far, it's very, very good. It really brings out people images in an unusual way. And if you take pictures of a lot of people, take a lot of selfies, take pictures of other people in parties, you're really going to enjoy using that feature. Leica has also collaborated on the front camera, and the selfie cam on here has a cool feature. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it here, but if there were multiple people in this image, then it automatically reframes to to make sure all the faces are into the picture instead of just one person. It's a little thing, but it's quite cool and is definitely a time saver. The phone itself, as we said, 5.1 inch screen, 1080p resolution. The Kirin 960 processor is inside, the same as the Mate 9, 4 GB of RAM, so it's going to be really quick, really fast to use. The Android operating system is very familiar to anyone who uses it. You'll see on this version here, we don't have a app tray, but you can select it so you can have an app tray and not have all these apps along the top. The phone is super slim. There's lots of little cool details you might be able to see on the power button here. There's a little red surround. There's also a texture, so when you're searching for that without looking, it's easy to find with your thumb and not mistake it for the volume control. Really nice design detail by Huawei there. Now, while we're just looking at the size here, this phone is 5.1 inches and we happen to have an LG G6 just to hand here. Now, the LG G6 has got a massive 5.7 inch screen, yet if we put the two together, I don't know how well you can see there, but that is essentially the same size. And that highlights the astonishing achievement of LG to fit a 5.7 inch screen into the G6. Now, a bit unfair to Huawei, it is a very different phone, but it's an interesting comparison nonetheless. So that's a quick look at the P10. Now, sad news for anyone who's living in the US, you're not going to be able to buy this. This is currently a European and China and a few other regions release, and it starts from 650 euros, which is quite expensive. There are different levels. There's a P10 Plus, which has a few other changes as well, which is even more expensive. Currently, this is set to go on sale in March. We're hoping that perhaps a few months down the line, Huawei will pull off a miracle and bring this out in the US like they did with the Mate 9, but that's only speculation. Sadly, we don't know yet. You can read all about the P10 on Digital Trends right now.